Greetings, viewers. How are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of Come Together. Today, I will be interviewing Andre Campbell, great friend of mine, positive young man who we're going to have a talk about a few things, see if we can find some things that can help our community, help our men of our community, and other people in the community as well. So after the opening, I will be talking to Andre Campbell. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
This is the greatest game of telephone that has ever been played. Someone said the black man doesn't raise his kids or care for his family, and that message is still being told to everyone today. They even have us saying,
"We are not a monolith. We have various opinions and thoughts. We are much more than what we are portrayed to be by the media.
even when we are the victims of injustice, we are still portrayed as the perpetrators. When it comes to the black man, there is an intentional plan to discredit the past, arrest the present, and destroy the future.
Something must be done, but nothing will work until we come together. Viewers, we are speaking with Mr. Andre Campbell. Andre has done so many things that I'm not even going to attempt to do this long introduction. I know he was a pastor. He's still a minister, and I know they get long, drawn-out introductions all the time. So, Andre, I'm going to let you tell the people a little bit about you.
Well, it's good to be here with you, Brian. And we've done some things in recent the last year or two that has really drawn us closer, man. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, on your podcast.
No problem.
Come together. I spent 23 years in ministry, 22 officially, but it lagged on for almost another year. But 23 years as a pastor, but I was always a businessman. Businessman, as they say, entrepreneurial. When I went to high school, I think I said this on your radio show. We were talking about just the progression from a barber. I looked around to see who was making money. I called my old man and said, "Hey, can I get some allowance so I can buy some oatmeal cream pies and some sodas at the store?" That's my story. And he was like, "Your what they call it, your allowance is that I'm allowing you to go to high school." Right. And I'm paying for it. Right. And I was like, dang, does it have to be like that? And but it was for a purpose, because I dug deep into the entrepreneurial side of life. And and of course we always say, we pull from the DNA, we pull from, my grandmother on my mother's side was an extremely successful businesswoman. Okay. In the Bahamas, and she saw an opportunity when the Greeks would come down to Bay Street there in Nassau, and they were just trading sponges, right. the natural sponges, right? And then they set up shop and they started building there, and they started building up a life there, commerce, trade there. She was working for a Greek gentleman who was doing textiles, bringing in shirts and fabric and stuff like that. And he saw her work ethic as a seamstress, and she had an idea that she wanted to create her own, like, what do you call it, factory line? Assembly line for shirts. So she said she figured out she could make collars, and the collars was the part of something that took the most time or something. So she just made a bunch of collars, and then she had this assembly line set up going. And he saw he saw that she was advancing his business. Right. And so he gave her an invite to the all white, and they have some other terms they use, but that little setting where they could meet with the merchants that would come in and sell the dry goods, fabrics. And that he invited, when she walked in, the story goes where she was the only woman there, first and foremost, right, and the only person of color. And they didn't dare ask, "What are you doing here?" Because the gentleman who pretty much run that is
Right.
who invited her. And that's how she got started. And I think, I watched her growing up. I go spend summers in the Bahamas and I watch her, and that's where the business spark, went.
Wow.
So I know I kind of went a little like granular in my past.
That's deep. That's deep because,
Yeah.
People constantly talk about our ancestors. And
Yeah.
I don't know how or when they bless us, but they
Yeah.
bless us regardless of
Yeah.
what you believe or what people believe about the past. There's a way that it gets in us. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There's a way that we bring those things forth. And obviously she's making shirts, and here you're sitting here with a child of God.
Yeah, that's the irony, right?
Yeah, you know
Back
what
to
I'm saying?
textiles,
So
right?
tell them about that. Tell them about the child of God thing, since you got it on and we're talking about.
This conversation, if you don't mind, it's sparking, me remembering that in the summers she had land in the Bahamas, in Nassau in particular. And she had an empty piece of land. She put a little shack on it, and she said, "This is your summer business.
Wow.
Not your summer job." And she would fund us. She'd front load us to get sodas and candy and all the stuff and ice pops and stuff, all the stuff that the kids would want. We had a little refrigerator, like deep freeze up in that joint that came over from Miami. And so in the summer times, I'm running business, while I'm a bust on my brother, while my brother and my cousin is just trying to give away stuff to the girls. I'm trying to like be the financial manager, the cashier and the salesman. And so, she gave us that experience. And you said something, somewhere or another, those who come before us can pass on this knowledge. Let me tell you something. More is, if we have the opportunity to be alive and to influence those who come after us, to strengthen the foundation of those who come after us. And I know that's what we're talking about tonight. Let me tell you something. If we're alive and can do that, more is caught than is taught. So if we just give young people an opportunity to see us, because they're watching. Right. Why? Because they want to know. They want to. They're lacking confidence. They're lacking know-how. And so, I thank my grandmother, Carrota Knowles McKinney, who was a businesswoman until the day she lay her head down. And I've gone from cutting hair to selling cars. I made more money selling cars than I did pastoring. When I was pastoring, I would sell a couple of luxury vehicles for the year and literally profit a lot of times more than salary. So from that to animation, to the Fruit Troop, which was that was a learning curve, to the vegan meat. That was another learning curve. And we were early to both the faith-based market and the vegan meat market. But now I've transitioned into the corporate world. I'm chief strategy officer for a medtech startup. And we're coming with a strong innovation.
No doubt.
That's like my life in a
That's a nutshell. Yeah, listen, I'm going to tell you, it's impressive to have that train of accomplishments. It's funny because I can go back to all of those parts of your life and find somebody that I know that dealt with you with one of those things. I saw you in each one of them. I wasn't there consistently throughout, but I saw you with the haircuts, and I got a few. One of my most memorable haircuts.
And you still got hair.
Yeah, and yes. So you didn't.
A lot of jokers.
I actually had you perform on programs of mine. I had you when you sold cars. I didn't get to buy one, but I've seen some of them. I was there with the vegetarian meat when your partner Samson brought some over to my house, and I cooked it up for him. And I talked to you about Fruit Troop when you were doing that when you were out in California. So yeah, I've seen it. And the thing that's good about you with all of this is, even though you seem to go from one thing to another, you were always still Andre Campbell. You never changed who you were. And I think a lot of us, especially us as guys, because
A lot of us seem to have to get our hustle on a lot in our life to get to where we want to be. A lot of people think that you have to show consistency in every single thing. And there's no consistency through that except for who you were, your personality, and how you did things. People enjoyed the way you did it. So if somebody said, well, Andre is not selling cars no more, he's selling vegetarian meat now, then people are like, okay, well, then I want to try that vegetarian meat. You know, it's what it is. And that's a blessing to be able to have that type of personality and that type of consistency of yourself, that people just believe in what you're doing, because it wasn't like you failed at anything as people would see. They just felt like, okay, he's moved on to something else. And now you have moved into a corporate level position where, I mean, it's undeniable. And nobody can say it's not because of what you did before. That hustle made you, you know? And so it's impressive. It's definitely impressive. And that's what this show is about. This show is about us exposing positive Black men to the community. Black men are getting such a bad rap out here. There's so many things that are being said that aren't true about the mass of us, maybe true about some of us, and truthfully, it's true about a small portion of us. There's no rumor really that I've heard, or bad stereotype that I've heard about Black men that's not as true about other races. And so my thought is, why are we catching it so much? And I have ideas about what that answer is, but you know, I need to know from the top, or I needed to stop. So that's what we're here for, and we want to talk about. I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's been educated at different institutions, what do you see as the reason, or just the motivation behind rumors like there are more Black men in jail than there are in college? Because we found that that's not true. There's abundantly more Black men in college than there are in prison right now, or in the prison system. So break that down for me and tell me, you know, give me some of your thoughts on why you think that's the case being said, and give me some background on what you think about that.
Well, you know, since we talked last time, I really had some time to really think about this particular topic. You know, the prison topic. We talk about that quite a bit because the capstone I did for my MBA was on a software that would actually help those who come out of the prison system to actually not end up in the churn, not ending up just turning back over and going back in. Right. So as I studied this, I realized that there are so many, there's two components that I want to point out. One is the images that we see all the time when it came to Black men was, you know, whether it was the movies, the prison movies, right, or anything, a lot of times prison was where we were. Prison in a lot of senses, or we were on our way to prison, we were doing something that would land us in prison or whatever. Right? Wrongly convicted or whatever. And so that image is burned into our minds. If we look at the culture right now, Black people are everywhere. Right. I went to get something notarized at a place called Amscott this morning, and I noticed that they had switched up the artwork inside on the walls. They had wallpaper with people. Now there's like 3 Black people and 1 Asian guy and maybe 1 white person on the walls. And so there's this push of I just want to say Blackness, because we got all kind of ways we call it, but right, there's this big push. And so we're about to see we're seeing a different look for Black men. We're seeing Black men in father roles in the commercials right now. So it's heavy. But right, prior to that, just a short while ago, and still even today, we still see the negatives. And so when we talk about the prison system and that churn, there's a lot of young Black men in college, right, who are in college. There's a lot of young Black men in college, but they are still vulnerable to ending up in the prison system over all sorts of things.
Yeah, college
tickets,
right,
speeding tickets,
right.
There was a speeding trap for the state troopers, several speeding traps in Virginia when I used to drive from Maryland to Huntsville to Oakwood College then, Oakwood University now. And it was speed traps. And they would target, you know, what they call it, profiling. They would do racial profiling, and back in the early 90s, I'm talking like that's back in the 50s.
It is now.
Yeah, right. Back in the early 90s, you know, you get pulled over, the state trooper's going to say, you know, one state trooper pulled us over. He said, "Were you traveling? Were you and those Mexicans traveling together?" Because there was like a line of 10 cars, and my brother and I, we were black. Right. There was some Hispanic individuals. Apparently he assumed they were Mexican, and there were other people, other Caucasian or white, as whatever we call. And we were all together when the 5-0, when he pulled out, and he pulled up, pointed us over to the side, and pointed the Hispanic individuals over to the side as well. And so there was targeting, you know what I'm saying? Imagine if you didn't have your stuff together, your registration, your insurance. And so we have this stereotype of there's more black men in prison than there are in jail. But the sad reality is that even those, I said prison and jail, sorry, they're more in prison or jail than there are in college or university. Even if you're in university, you are at risk of that happening. And so it's real. It's not just made up. There's a high possibility. I mean, if you do some foolishness, of course, but there's a really big possibility that you could end up in jail while studying in school. And so,
I know we both have friends that occurred with, and you know, it's unfortunate.
Not for grace.
Most of the ones that I know that did happen to were not in for a little while. They were in for a minute. Absolutely. And it's really weird that our system seems to have a bigger penalty for us than it does for other people of the same crime. That's something that's very popular now being spoken about. I know that when you talk about driving to Huntsville, there was another area, South Pittsburgh, that used to get a lot of brothers caught. And even to this day, when I drive down to Alabama to see my dad and stuff, and I go through, as soon as I get off that exit off of 24 in South Pittsburgh just to go to Huntsville, I'm like,
you already know.
It's changed a lot. It used to be 20, 25 miles an hour. It's a little faster now, and I still watch my speed. But I remember brothers coming down for alumni weekend or for other things like that, and the cops pulling them over and saying, "Yeah, you need to pay this ticket right now."
And so that's the kernel of what we're saying. I wanted to make sure I said it because I could say a lot of things and miss that kernel, and that is, it's not. There's a reality of a lot more of us going in and out of prison or jail, probably jail more so, because I know that we have to delineate those two, as you know, just as a result of living.
Right.
So this stereotype is not only fed by what's on TV, it's also fed by the reality that you could be a black man in college.
Right.
And it will not be strange that you spent a weekend or a month in prison, in jail, because of a misstep that someone else may not end up being picked up or locked up for.
That's true. That's true. I definitely see that. It's a lot, you know, to hear the stories. I'm gonna tell you, I used to be a skeptic, and it wasn't on our side. When I would hear stories, I'd be like, "Yeah, brother, you was doing something wrong," this, that, and the other. Until I started to see different things, and I started to experience. And then when I got caught up in it myself, I mean, I've never been arrested, but I've been pulled over for reasons that I still don't know, and detained. And you know, so it's amazing to see it happen. And you know what it is when there's nothing absolutely wrong and nothing's gone wrong. When I got pulled over driving to New York, the cop told me that I was doing 55 and a 65, and I was like, "So there's nothing wrong with that." And then he switched it up, you know, and I was like, "Okay, no, you were right," because I was looking at the speedometer, but you know, it was just, "No, we need to pull you over," and kept us for a while, questioned,
separated us, took the passenger out of the car. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on, and that was during the time when people were getting, when brothers of color were getting shot. That was right after Philando Castile and all of this stuff. So I was pretty afraid. I'm not going to even lie. I was like, this is it, right? This is how it goes down. This is the story that your friends are going to be telling everybody about how Brian died. And it was amazing just to get out of that. But the feeling that promotes the distrust also produces a nervousness that allows some people to get into trouble, because you get scared. You see the cops in your rearview mirror. Even now, I drive to school every day on this highway, and they travel pretty fast on this little highway, 200 here in Maryland. It was known as the ICC for a while, but they fly on the morning on one side. I'm going the way I'm going. Fly. People they get really high up on the speeds. And so, because trying to get to work, we do it, and I'll see the cops from the back and I see the lights, and instantly I'm paralyzed. Like, oh no. And they'll come right to me and go by. And because that's how it goes in the morning. It's cool. And it doesn't matter how many days it happens. I'm never going to get used to the police officer. My license plate got messed up on the front of my car, so I took it off and put it in my windshield until I could get the new one. And I got pulled over, and that's all he wanted to talk about. I was like, "Oh, where's your tag?" And he saw it on my window. He's like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Just go ahead and get that taken care of." And I was like, "Okay," but he still was license, registration, everything, because what I found out from other police officers that I know is that anytime you pull somebody over, there's a chance that they're doing something else. So let's get the license and registration and check that out and see what you're doing. Let's sit here long enough to see if you're nervous enough to mess something up. There's a lot of stuff that can go on. So it feels kind of crazy, but I feel you. I think that there's a lot for us to sort of fix this narrative. I know that we have talked about a lot of things that we've worked on, and you might have some solutions for us. It's not just for Black men. These solutions will work for anybody, but if they're going to work for anybody, then I need them to work for us. So give me a little bit about what you've been working on, what we've been working on. Let's talk about that. Let the viewers know about
the cat out the bag. All right. Well, for some time now, I've been working on a concept with you titled Essential Mental Technology, EMT for short. And of course, we think of EMT with the sirens that you were just talking about, right? The ambulance, etc. But this EMT, this essential mental technology, are some of the basics that, if basic concepts, basic frameworks, basic mental models, that if we understood these things, it would help us tremendously in life. I'm not a teacher, you are, so you could approve of what I'm about to say or disapprove of what I'm about to say. You know what I'm trying to say. But a child up to about the age 7, they're introduced to colors, numbers, shapes, letters, and what do you call it? Sensory, where they touch it and they know, different, it feels different ways. So
sensory,
they can take sensory perception. I had another word for it, but anyway, the point is that they take these tools that they're given, and whether or not they understand what they have been given, those tools can be put into an infinite number of combinations, and create anything that we've set our mind to, almost just about anything. And so little children are given these tools, the same numbers that go into the formulas that launch things into space, the same letters that are used to give the greatest speeches or whatever it might be, right? Write the code, whatever. They're given that as children, and then expected to take that and make something worthwhile out of it.
Right.
And what I realize is that a lot of times there are tools that are left out of that toolkit.
Okay.
That are left out that they don't have in order to really progress. And one of those, just one of those that we could even touch on tonight is the tool of reflection. Like when we act in life, are we just going to act and then act again? And then when someone acts, when the other actors arrive, right, and we're acting on each other, then we're reacting against each other. But at what point do we reflect? And children, with all these tools that we give them, are they taught at any point to stop and say, well, what did I do last time?
Right.
And do I need to do something different?
Right.
Is there another way? Right? These are the questions that, when proliferated in the minds of a young person, man, children are amazing. All you got to know how amazing kids are. You don't have to watch Bill Cosby or one of those kids say the most amazing things.
Yeah.
Steve Harvey, whoever had it.
Things. Right.
Yeah. Tiffany Haddish or whoever had it. All you have to do is look at the Kawasaki method of playing the violin, and they take a 3-year-old and by 6 or something crazy like that. That child is mastering that thing. So I truly believe that we can give children, but if you missed it as a child, there's some essential mental technology we can give you as a teenager. If you missed it as a teenager, there's some things some fundamental things that we can share with you as an adult. And I'll give you one of the adult things. Again, reflection is big. As adults, we really need to reflect. But how about self-management?
Wow.
How many of us actually arrive at self-management? And so what we've put together and continue to put together, because it's going to continue, I think it's going to continue to morph, are the basics that a lot of times you look and you realize, I didn't understand that. If I'd have known that, I would have made these decisions or otherwise.
That's big.
I'm not that, and I'm not one that believes in fate. Like que sera, sera, what will be, will be. I don't believe in that. I believe that God has a divine destiny for your life and for my life. And if we literally would stop and pay attention, stop drifting, and actually, get our behinds in gear, and navigate the narrow path with the right information. Bible says, "My people perish for a lack of knowledge."
Wow.
Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in fruit salad. We need both.
Every time you say that gets me.
I say it every time because somebody ain't heard it, right?
But tell me this. So when we talk about the tools that are missing, I think 2 ways on that. Sometimes I think the tools are missing, and sometimes I think people don't know what tool to use for what job. So I think back to when I was a kid. We had this closet in the hallway of our apartment, and I think I'm not sure because I was very young. It was the coat closet, but at the bottom, my dad had a bunch of stuff, and that stuff just always seemed to draw me. And there were tools and stuff in there, so I would go in there and I would just pull stuff out. And I had tools I had no idea what they were. I knew the hammer. I knew the 2 screwdrivers. I didn't know one was Phillips and one was flathead. I just knew the 2 different screwdrivers. There were pliers and wrenches and things in there. And anytime that I had something that I thought didn't work, I would open it up. Now, this is not one of those victory stories where I put something back together and it worked, because that never happened. But I ended up adding to the pile of stuff in there because there's times I just broke stuff up and I was just like, okay, put this back in there with the tools. But there were tools that now I know how to use and use correctly. There were many screws that I stripped because I was trying to turn them with a wrench or some pliers, or I was using a flathead on a Phillips screw, or whatever it is. I had a tool. And people are like, yeah, you need tools, but the right tool gets you efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, I like that.
Tool, you might get it done.
Efficiency and effectiveness.
You get it done with some things wrong, some things messed up. You might leave something permanently wrong after you use the wrong tool. So I think that's one of the things that happens.
You bring a strong point, efficiency and effectiveness, and I want to add one to that. That we arrive wherever our destination that we believe our destination is, where we're heading. I want to arrive there whole.
Right.
I don't want to arrive there as a twisted person, as an angry person. I've been in business before with others. A lot of those other businesses were other people involved in those, other personalities and other individuals involved in those businesses, and God bless all of them. But at the same time, I think we arrived at there were so many things that happened along the way. We arrived at the other end, right on the precipice of bigger and bigger successes each and every time. We arrived there not the same as we started out. And I don't mean that we didn't grow. I'm talking about like we may not really like each other now,
Right. Well,
so I've grown to appreciate the importance of that.
Right.
Of getting to the other side. So efficiently get to the other side of it with integrity,
Right.
And I think it's possible. And here's one of those tools. Simple one, and patience. We don't often think of it as that, but it's a tool. The farmer sows the seed in the ground, that seed. If he sits there every single day and trying to figure out what, watching for that seed to grow, he's gonna drive himself half mad. He knows that he sows that seed is gonna come up, and at some point he's gonna have to be ready for that harvest, to reap that harvest.
Right.
If he misses the harvest, and their harvest is happening all around us, man. I think we just, like you said, need to recognize the tools that are needed to reap that harvest.
Well, yeah,
maybe it's not patience. Yeah,
that's very important. I mean, I can think about times when, I might want to bang a nail into something, and I might grab.
I was wondering where he's going with that, man. Okay, go ahead.
I might want to grab a shoe, and bang, and I can bang a nail into something with a shoe. I'm probably going to mess up the heel on the shoe, or from the way I'm holding it, I'm bending the shoe too much, and it's not going to look as nice. Or I could use a hammer, and I think about that with some things that I might do in life where I use the wrong tool, where I want to get something across to somebody, and instead of using understanding or compassion, I use sarcasm. Sarcasm will get it done. It will get it done well. But will it leave a stain? Yes. It will leave a mark. And it's important that I think a lot of us, especially in our community, have learned to be very, very anxious and quick with things. And so we want to get something done so quickly, or we want to get it done in a fashion that might not be the best, just to get it done, because that's what it is for some of us. Our lives have been so hurried.
Get it done.
As a New Yorker, hurried is sometimes the way. Let's just get it done. And when you take the time to do it right, then you can you get to relax later. But if you rush now, that's why they say haste makes waste. And I didn't understand that as a child. How could doing something fast create waste? You're saving time. No, you're not always saving time.
No.
But if you have to do it over, you didn't save time.
You might be cutting corners.
I have students who I taught, who I would see when I would give a test, they would be rushing to get it finished. And I'm like, what are you rushing for? You got plenty of time. But they see somebody else come up with their paper, now they got to turn theirs in. And I'm like, they might have turned in a paper with nothing on it. They might not have known what they were doing. What are you doing? Why are you rushing? I don't want to be the last one. Why not? It's not a race. You know what I'm saying? So when you're rushing, things happen. You make mistakes. My dad, the one thing that I remember, out of all of the things that I remember the most of my dad saying that made sense right away, and I used it all the time, was he said, never be in a rush for anything. And he was talking to me about that while I was driving. And so, because I have what is known as a lead foot.
I was about to say a lead foot.
My dad had what's known as a lead foot. My mom had, we all were drivers like that. And I think that most of what my dad tells me is not just because he sees me doing it, but he knows I've seen him do it. So it's like, okay, don't do that. That's not what you want to do. But it's a thing for us to rush to get things done. Maybe because we've been in competition so long. Maybe because we always feel like somebody else is going to come up with something we're doing. But I think that taking your time and doing it right and doing it the right way has proven to be so much better. And it takes
a lot more discipline. Okay, and discipline is usually much more, just much more of something that somebody looks at positively than anything else. So those
due diligence, man. Due diligence.
Say that again.
Due diligence.
Yes. Due diligence.
That's what I've come to realize in business. Thomas Sowell. I read his stuff voraciously, and one of the things he said is that you only need 3 things to be successful in business. And any young person that's listening now, take this to the bank now. Take this to your crypto wallet early, and bank on this. All right, and that is you need 3 things. You need knowledge, you need skill, and you need a willingness to work.
Wow.
Knowledge, skill, and a willingness to work. And you cannot be held back. You can't be held back because you're Black. They'll have to burn it down like they did in Tulsa. You see what I'm saying? But you're going to build it, and it's going to be successful, right? Somebody has to take it. Somebody has to come and try to take it from you. But if you have the knowledge, the skill, and the willingness to work, you can grow. My wife and I, we have a business that we started when I left ministry, and it was really a 3-year runway. But we've been actually operating for a year now, and we're looking to actually expand. The opportunity to expand has come, but the biggest thing was employees.
Right.
And God has blessed where we have come upon some individuals who are dedicated, who've proven they're dedicated. And so now the business can actually grow. And I know I can totally, I did, I'm like in the back office doing some paperwork, paying the bills, different things like that. Making sure I did our taxes on time. I think this is the first time I did taxes on time in a long time, but did it on time. And, it's a different place. And I just want to encourage, those who are listening, there are framework, just like the children receive those tools. Many of us have got, some of us that didn't get an education, some of us dropped out,
right.
There's different things, but take whatever you have. And I think one of the greatest places to learn from is the Word of God. I go there first, but definitely take the wisdom that's here for the taking, and actually we can build on that. And I want to encourage a lot of young people listening, because our world is changing. So
right, no doubt.
Before I go off into that stuff,
no doubt. I mean, that's definitely true. Also, I think that one thing that would help especially the men in our community, the women in our community, everybody, is that you have got to get to the point where you don't listen to all of the cliches that seem to surround us. And I'm probably the official cliche hater. I'm not a fan of most cliches. Sometimes they're being used incorrectly, and sometimes people are using them as educational tools when they're not really something you should learn. And the thing I feel the most about cliches is that the younger people take them more literally than we've ever meant them to be. A lot of these cliches were not meant to be taken literally. So when I hear somebody say, listen, and a motivational speaker say, listen, you can't listen to what nobody tells you. You got to do your thing. Your thing is what is yours, and nobody can take it away from you. I'm like, you don't want to take that away from you. You want to say that to somebody who has self-actualized, who doesn't know who they are, who doesn't know where they're going. When you're starting out, there's a lot of things you should listen to. There are a lot of things you think you want to do that might need to be shaped. I know there are people who said, I want to be a doctor from when they were 3 years old, and now they're a doctor. Okay, great. But that's a vague thing to say. I want to be a doctor. There's all kind of doctors. There's all kind of things that you still have to listen to people. There is, as we talked about, an authority that you need to put yourself under at some point. You need to allow yourself to be governed by some authority. You need to allow yourself to be shaped by some authority. But when you tell somebody they don't have to listen to anybody, that's setting them up for failure. And they actually will do that. They will not listen to anybody, including you, even though you're the one who said that. And I think that it's a shame that so many cliches seem to have fallen on our community because we're language warriors. We put phrases together, you know. And no offense to your profession, but pastors put string words together.
Yeah.
They say
It's called puffery. I learned this word last week. It's called puffery. You know, the scam artists are allowed a certain amount of puffery in their advertisements in order to remain legal. If you cross that level of puffery to the higher level, now you're a scam. And or a Ponzi or a pyramid or whatever. So
well, you know,
puffery,
and I mean, no shame and no hate on pastors, but our pastors are pretty good at putting words together that say things. And sometimes there are people who take these things out of context. They don't always. I don't think that these things are being said to harm somebody or to dissuade somebody from the truth. But when people take those things out of context, which we often do, they end up you know, hurting themselves. And there's a lot of phrases that are turned in our community. You can just learn them anywhere. I remember when I was a freshman in college, what was the big one? I can't front. That was a big slang saying. And people saying that every time you said something, man, I can't front. I can't front. And I mean, sometimes people be saying it didn't even make sense. It didn't even fit into the conversation, but it was such a word of the day that it was used all the time. And I bet that there are phrases that if you ask somebody what that means now, it will mean something totally different than it was meant to mean. And so we need to be careful.
There's one that I speak a lot about. And that's the word peculiar. You know, since you touched on, you know, how the preachers tend to do it, you know, that word has come to mean strange, unique, different, etc., weird. But, you know, prior to the 1700s, that word also meant, it didn't mean weird or strange. It meant to something or someone that brings value to the lives of others.
Right.
And so, you know, to be peculiar, as the Bible encourages us to be peculiar, that it tells us we're a royal priesthood, a peculiar people. If we're peculiar, that means we're to bring value to the lives of others. And like you said, you know, one of the things, Brian, that what I always want to do is I want to bring value to others. I want to bring wisdom. I want knowledge and wisdom. I want to be like, here's the way. Like I've walked in this path. I can vouch for this path. And here are the tools that you need to traverse this path. You know, don't get caught up in the sabotage and the subterfuge that the adversarial forces of this world have for us. Wow. Don't get caught up in the trends. Pay attention to the trajectory.
Wow.
Look at trajectory. You're a mathematician, so you know trajectory. You know how that operates. And so if I'm gonna bring value, I want to bring good, solid information to my brothers and sisters so that they have an opportunity going forth. Relationships, marriages, the whole nine.
Right. That's great. I mean, and that sounds like the show I've been watching, The Mandalorian, where they talk to each other and say, this is the way.
I watched that whole series, actually, man. That one caught me. I was watching that.
This is the way. That sounds good. I think that there's a lot that we can do to sort of dispel myths and rumors about us, because I think that we need to stand up and seriously be counted as successful people before we reach what our country labels as success. You know, there's a success in everything, and people are not looking at small successes as success. For example, I'll give you, when I teach math, I remember years ago, I had a student who was failing every test, hardly studying, doing anything. And they decided they wanted to be serious. They said, Mr. Watts, you know, my parents are getting on me. I really want to pass this class. I need some help. And I said, okay, well, I'll give you that help. What do you need? And so we talked about how they were studying, all of this. And they would usually get like a 20 or something on a test that was out of 100. Mm-hmm. And I remember the next test, they got a 55. And they were just upset. You know, and this has happened with a lot of different students. But this particular student got a 55. They were upset. And I said, what's wrong? He said, well, I'm still failing the test. I mean, all of that was for nothing. I said, you went up 35 points. And they're like, what do you mean? You were getting 20s before. Now you got a 55. That's 35 points.
Show me somebody else in your class that went up 35 points. Nobody. You are the most successful in that right. You need to go home and celebrate. And he said, but my mom's still going to be mad. I'll call your mom too. You went up. You're in the right. You're going the right way. Everything's not going to happen.
That's the right trajectory.
Yeah, if you go up 30 points the next time, you'll be at 85. So keep doing what you're doing. So celebrate the success. Don't go crazy, but celebrate it in your mind. Like, yeah, I did better.
Love the analogy, B.
Keep going better and better. And these students started to realize, oh my goodness, this guy's right. These are positive things I'm doing. I'm in the right way. If I gave up right now, I'd be back where I was, and I'd never get back. And we don't look at that. We hear these things like second place is the first loser and all of this stuff, and it's so detrimental to what we're doing, because truthfully, if you're in a contest with somebody has to come in second place. You know, I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan, right? And all I ever hear when I say that I'm a Buffalo Bills fan is, oh, y'all lost the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. And I'm like, okay, but for those 4 years, we were the number 2 team in the NFL for 4 years in a row. Did your team do that? And people are like, no, but y'all lost. And I'm like, but you're not listening. We were number 2 for 4 years in a row. If you weren't number 1, then there's nothing you should have to say. But we've gotten this image of second place is the first loser. And even if that's true, that means you're even a worse loser. So I don't get how we use these things and how we push these narratives.
That, just to tie into that, you and I, we often talk about the tortoise and the hare.
Right. Exactly.
The tortoise is just the hare, the rabbit is just jutting back and forth, really on those trends. He's just jumping, hanging out over here, hanging over there. Oh, this looks great to do over here. Just drifting along because he knows he has the speed when he needs it. So he's procrastinating. And the tortoise, the turtle, has possibly the wisdom of just what it takes just to be a turtle, right? I have these large turtles in my pond back here, and I watch how they operate around the alligators that are back there too, but they're real easy, and but the Aesop, I think it was Aesop's fable that came from. And if we're keen, we realize that turtle had a trajectory. I'm still on that trajectory. It was focused that I'm gonna steadily, moment by moment, day by day, whatever it took, get to that finish line. And it stayed focused. And I think that the tools that we spoke about will help to focus us, to help to bring some of the things that we want, we want in this life, we want from this life, we hope for in this life. And it's not always money, right? It's health, it's relationships, meaningful relationships. It's all of these things. What is money? What is money and food and raiment and all these things if we have no one else to share it with? Nobody wants to be around us, And so, yeah, man, I'm looking at it from that, and I want to be the turtle.
Well,
I want to just be steady as she goes. I learned a lesson.
Yeah, I think there's one thing I learned about being a turtle. I used to drive a lot. I had a job where I had to drive for a while, and I take some long drives on vacations or going to see different family members and things like that. And I realized that you can play around all you want on the road. If you have a time to get somewhere, there comes a time that it doesn't matter how fast you go, you won't be able to get there on time if you've messed around. You know what I'm saying? There's times when you can fool around in your job, or you can fool around on things and still try to get things done on time. But there will be a minute that if that minute passes, it doesn't matter how fast you move, you can't make that deadline. And that is, to me, what the tortoise and hare story was about. It was like, okay, this guy knew what he had, but did he really? Because he didn't realize that even his speed, he was limited. And there's certain things that after a certain point, no amount of speed is going to get you there, not on time. It might get you there late, but it's not going to get you there on time. And I think that
we need to always keep in our minds that there's constantly going to be a distraction in our path. When I was younger, there weren't as many distractions for me because growing up in the South Bronx,
Mm,
we just didn't have a lot of stuff. Okay, when my parents sent me to my room, it was actually a punishment because there was nothing in
mm,
there but the stuff that came with the room, or my
mm,
bed, my dresser. I'm not gonna play with my dresser drawers, or something like that. So that was a punishment. I remember later as a teenager watching a friend's son for her, and we didn't have to send him to his room because his room is where all the stuff was. He had a TV. He was 9. He had a TV, a
mm,
VCR, computer, games, everything. And I was like, man, I'm
mhm,
gonna get sent to his room. You know,
mhm. Yeah,
everything.
let me go to the room.
Now there are so many distractions, and
Mhm,
the thing that was a distraction for me when I was young was television. I only got to watch maybe an hour a night or so when we were young, but television was a distraction because I wanted to watch it. But now television even isn't even a distraction because kids got it on their phone. They have access to all types of things where television is the least of their worries. So there's so many more distractions now, and it's so much harder to
yeah.
tell somebody, hey, sacrifice, put those distractions down and do what you need to do so you can get to a point where you can relax and use all those distractions. Sit down
Mhm,
and take your time with them. But if you
mhm,
keep playing now, then you'll have to work later. Work hard now,
mhm,
you can play later. But keep
yeah.
playing now, you will have to work later. And having
Mhm,
to work is much worse than doing the work that you have to do right now, when it's a must. And I think that's something that our young people and old people alike need to learn to be successful. And as we push for a positive spin with our Black men, and I mean young and old, that is a lesson that needs to be learned because so many people think, and we can attest to this, that
mhm.
when you're young, you can do whatever and just get serious when you get older. Um, you can't rehearse this foolish life and then expect to have a great serious life later. It's
Mhm.
not. It's just not gonna
No,
happen.
I mean, let's let's take it back to business. Let's take it back to what we're with really trying to transmit this concept to those who are to our listeners, to young Black men, older Black men, wherever you may be, men in general. I'm equal opportunity in that regard, right? I want to spread the love across the board. I know that we've had our challenges, but really dialing in and focusing. The listeners may have heard me talk about all kind of businesses, but I've narrowed it down. My life is narrowed down to 3 things now.
Right.
Literally 3 things. One is run by my wife, and I support that, right? To help her, I've always promised. I said I've helped so many other people start businesses. I've helped run businesses for other people. I said I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna invest in you. And let me tell you something. That's been a blessing. Men invest in your wives, right? Wives invest in your husbands, right? Trust, and work together. The other business, is the med tech, business and the medical device, and that has been, I've now been with that company for 4 years,
Okay.
and that's continuing to morph into something very interesting. So I put time in there, but that's not my whole day. It's not all my day. But I always still have to do ministry. So even though I stopped pastoring, I transitioned to Child of God. And that Child of God clothing brand, but it's more than a brand, it's a mission. We support Isaiah's Place Ministry, which is a homeless feeding ministry that went from feeding 1,000 hot meals. A former professor from Oakwood, nursing professor from Oakwood University, moved to Florida and started feeding homeless people from her house. And she could manage about 1,000 hot meals for the year. And she came to the church I was pastoring at the time, joined forces, and we volunteer team, a little bit of funding and space, and she went, to well over 10,000 hot meals a year, transitional housing, medical backpack ministry, and now looking to actually buy a campus in order to do larger things. So I'm, Child of God, we support that. That's what we do, and that's what I want to encourage. you said it already. God first. Start with God. Recognize his power. Exchange thoughts with him, and he will guide us. But that is that focusing. That I spend time in the morning, not just in the word. This may sound a little this I don't know. Maybe it may not sound crazy, but sometimes I'm talking to God and I say, look, I would like to understand this topic right here.
Right.
It may not be a biblical topic. Lord, I want to understand sustainability. Lord, I want to understand, crypto. Guide me. Open my eyes to what I'm not seeing.
Right.
And I'm telling you, a lot of times we don't think we can come to God that way.
Right.
But we can. We're like, open the eyes of my understanding. What did Solomon ask for? He asked for wisdom. And so I pray that those who listen, especially the young ones, realize that there's a narrow path that we can walk on this broader path of life. But we've got to have our eyes open, and we've got to be committed as well, and committed to those things that will bless us and benefit our lives.
It sounds good. Sounds good. I mean, I try to impress upon people that there's only two ways this can be happening. Either there is a God out there that takes care of us, or you're God yourself. There's only two ways, in one or the other. And it doesn't matter to me which one you believe. If you believe you're God, then you need to act like it. You need to do the things that need to be done and push forward in a positive way. If you believe there's a God out there that takes care of us, still the same thing. You need to let him in and let him do his thing and act like it. Act like you're a child of God. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's not, there's not too many ways in my mind that this can work. And it's a God for me is a broad term. But there is a higher power. There's somebody who tells me what to do, who impresses me when I don't know what to do, who gives me whatever it is that I need, who sustains me and pushes me through those things when I'm in trouble and all of that. I haven't been able to define it any other way. So I know that there's somebody out there doing it for me, or some being doing it for me. And it's I think that something like you have Child of God apparel is open to people who believe that there's a God, regardless of what denomination they are, regardless of what religion they are. That's still, Child of God is not something that's just exclusive. It's
It's a message, man. It's a message.
Yeah, and it's a message, but I'm saying to you that the general message, the general theme can be applicable to many people.
To anyone.
And
that's why, my brother, when he created it, almost 2 decades or more now ago, that was the whole thing. There's a message. He tells the story of a woman who was about to get robbed in Jamaica and was wearing one of the shirts. It had the logo on it as well, which we'll introduce a little later. But right now, we just want to introduce the message.
Right.
But she was wearing a shirt with a logo. She was coming up on her gate, and I may get the story a little wrong, but apparently she was robbed at gunpoint. But when the young man saw her shirt, right, he was convicted that what he was doing in order to just get some money, in order to go buy some cigarettes and some alcohol, was wrong. Wow. And he began to weep and began to, and actually spoke to this woman that he was about to rob at gunpoint. And, so I think sometimes we just need a reminder. We need a reminder of who we are. And when we remember that, we'll start to realize that God has not given us the spirit of fear. He's not given us the spirit of confusion, but he's given us the spirit of power and of a sound mind. And I pray that the generations that are coming up, I want to be a part of supporting those generations coming up, to give them the essential mental technology, the basic information, and to show them the frameworks and the pathways and the maturity models that they can operate in. So I'm here, man. Anytime. Love to come back and share some more.
Hey, no doubt. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more EMTs for us to discuss. And Absolutely. Like I said, even though our show is about promoting Black men, these technologies are great for anybody. I feel that way about the show. I think the show can be good for anybody to listen to. If you want to support the show, viewers and listeners, just give us a call or email right here on the page and let us know, how
I gotta get you your Patreon, man, or one of them joints. Hook you up with a Patreon, man.
No doubt, no doubt. Let us know how you felt about today's interview with Andre Campbell as well. And we'll see about getting him back on if everybody wants to hear more from him. And tell them where they can get Child of God apparel from.
Check us out at childofgod.love, childofgod.love. I hit some button there. Let me get back out of something hit my screen. Hold on. I'm still there. There we go. childofgod.love. And we got some wonderful colors. I'm wearing the baby blue today. I had the pink on just the other day. And black, white. We got a nice bone color one, a hoodie.
Nice,
and
nice,
a mint,
nice.
and like a mint hoodie and a mint crew neck. We've got some awesome t-shirts, and we have some women's tapered fitted t-shirts.
Well, here's the big question, though.
Yeah.
Do you have COVID sizes?
Well, the brand of hoodie that we chose, we chose a brand that's high quality, long lasting. And so it actually is true to fit. So if you order one of our hoodies or our sweatshirts, make sure you order a size up, especially if you got something of COVID. So if you think you wear a XL, you might want to grab the double X if you need it a little looser or baggy, because they run true to size. Okay. But we also have some hoodie dresses for the ladies. Hoodie dresses. So check us out.
I like those.
childofgod.love, man, and spread the word.
Well, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you can get that out there, viewers. Go ahead and check Andre out and Child of God apparel. And Andre, we'll holler at you, man. We'll hope to see you soon. And we will definitely get back with you and see how things are going. All right.
Absolutely, man. Blessings. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Andre Campbell, and I hope that you reach out for Child of God apparel for some pretty good stuff. Please don't forget to subscribe and like our channel, and reach out. Let us know what you think about the program. Let us know if you have some positive Black men that you think should be on the show. And if you'd like to advertise, have a commercial or something, give us a shout and we'll talk about it, okay? See what we can do to get you on. Have a great one, and enjoy the rest of your week.